Good afternoon, team. Let's call this professional assessment meeting to order. Our primary agenda today is to complete the group cross-evaluation worksheet by reviewing the video pitch delivered by Group 4, which focus on mental health and well-being among university students. As a professional panel, we need to evaluate all five speakers, Daryl, Aisha, Ikwan, Stephanie, and Tivia. Against our assessment criteria, identifying the problem, evaluating their solution, isolating strong and weak points, and testing realistic campus implementation. Koyum, as our evaluation lead, could you set our baseline parameters?
Thank you, Ilham. Looking at the big picture, Group 4 presented a very emotionally compelling narrative. However, our job today is to look past the emotion and perform a cold professional critique. We must evaluate whether their pitches pass the CRAAP test metrics for accuracy and authority, and whether their solutions are actually scalable within a public university budget like UKM's.
I agree, Koyum. While student mental health is an urgent concern, we must carefully analyze the boundary lines between peer level support and professional clinical counseling that Group 4 speaker proposed.
And from a preventative lifestyle standpoint, we need to critique if their proposed solutions target the deep systemic cause of student anxiety or just a slight temporary bandage on the symptoms.
Excellent. Let's open the floor to speaker 1, Daryl. Koyum, walk us through his section of the evaluation metrics.
Let's look at Daryl's section. So the problem he's trying to solve is the hidden reality of university students who appear perfectly fine on the outside while silently battling stress, anxiety, and mental pressure behind good grades. He notes that these struggles are dangerously normalized as part of university life, leading to long-term burnout and reduced future well-being. So the solution he proposes is a campus peer support system. This involves training student volunteers in basic mental health awareness, listening skills, and referral guidance, placed across faculties and clubs in collaboration with the University Counseling Unit.
Thank you, Koyum. Now let's look at the strong points of Daryl's solution. Zarit, what is your take on this?
So the main strength here is accessibility and psychological comfort. Daryl correctly point out that students are heavily hesitant to immediately seek professional help due to stigma or intimidation, but they are highly comfortable speaking to someone their own age. From an institutional standpoint, it's a very practical, low-cost model because it leverages existing student bodies and volunteer network without requiring heavy capital expenditure.
I'm going to have to push back slightly on the safety of this model, Zarit. Let's look at the weaknesses. Basic training in listening skills is incredibly risky when dealing with deep psychological distress. Student volunteers are not clinical professionals. If a peer approaches a volunteer with a severe clinical depression or suicidal ideation, a student volunteer does not possess the psychological containment skill to manage that crisis. So this creates a double liability. It put a massive emotional burden on the volunteers, which can cause their mental health to deteriorate, and it risks a delay referral for a student who needs immediate professional intervention.
Well, I agree with Khadijah's opinion. And another weakness is the lack of an enforcement and quality control mechanism. How does the counseling unit monitor anonymous peer support session happening in informal club setting to ensure the advice given is not actively harmful or counterproductive?
So to fill out our final criteria on the worksheet, can this idea be realistically implemented? Koyum, what is your take on this verdict?
Basically, yes, it is realistic, but only if it's strictly guided as a first tier filtering system, I'm sorry. It cannot act as a standalone solution, and it can be implemented at UKM if the counseling unit explicitly mandates that peer volunteers are strictly limited to active listening and immediate referral with a zero allowance for peer-to-peer coaching or pseudotherapy. Without those boundaries, the risk outweighs the benefit.
All right, let's move on to speaker 2, Aisha. Khadija, give us the overview of her pitch metrics.
The problem Aisha addresses is backed by strong statistical data. She states that, according to the Ministry of Health survey in 2023, youth mental health cases nearly doubled from 7.9% in 2019 to 16.5% in 2023, with suicidal ideation raising to 13.1% over the past decade. She notes that while the UKM Seco apps has emergency panic buttons, there's a massive gap in addressing everyday, non emergency emotional struggles due to tight student schedules, embarrassment, or fear of face to face sessions. So, the solution she gives is introducing a dedicated mental health support button inside the existing UKMC apps. This features 24 hours online counseling through two channels: direct video calls or anonymous text messaging, run by a rotating shift of real university counselors and trained peer volunteers for initial screenings.
Okay, let's debate the strong points here. Diana, how do you see the technical feasibility?
I think the strongest point is that it's directly solved the confidentiality and stigma issue that Aisha highlighted. Text-based anonymous access lowers the barrier to entry for help immensely. Furthermore, by building this feature into the existing UKMC app infrastructure rather than developing a new standalone app, the implementation cost is exceptionally minimal, making it highly feasible for the IT department.
I see the technical advantage, Diana, but let's critically address the weaknesses. Aisha states this will offer 24 hours online counseling with real university counselor. This is completely unrealistic from a human resource perspective. Public university in Malaysia have a notoriously low counselor to student ratio. Our current campus counselor are already overwhelmed with daytime caseload. Mandating a 24 hours rotating shift, even with peer volunteer doing initial screening, will cause an immediate burnout crisis among our professional staff.
And I have an objection regarding the data security as well, because true anonymity within a university management app like UKMC is difficult to execute. Because the app is hard linked to the student's metrics card number and academic profile for login credentials. If a student knows the app is tied to their student ID, they will not trust the text counseling is truly anonymous, which defeats the entire purpose of reducing stigma.
Very well said, Koyum. Now, based on this, let's answer the final prompt on the worksheet. Can this idea be realistically implemented?
It is partially realistic. The technology can easily be implemented by the IT center. However, to make it operationally viable, the 24 hours element must be scaled back. It should operate during peak stress hours, such as 6 p.m. to midnight, rather than a full 24 hours, to protect counselor resources while still filling the evening gap when traditional counseling offices are closed.
Very well. Now, let's move on to speaker 3, Ikwan. Diana, how about you talk us through his lifestyle based approach?
The problem Iquan targets is what he called as a silent epidemic on campus. Citing extreme data, he stated that 75% of first-year students suffer from significant anxiety, 73% from high stress, and nearly 50% from depressions, driven by workload, financial worries, and poor lifestyle behaviors like lack of sleep and physical inactivity. So the solution he proposed is a preventative, structured and university-wide initiative built on four distinct health pillars, which is physical activity, on-campus walking or yoga clubs, sleep hygiene workshop, nutritional support, and mindfulness like free app subscriptions. So he cited it based on the University of California and Pennsylvania State University as a successful benchmark to look forward.
Well, I want to immediately push back on his data before we look at the strong points. Ikwan assert that 75% of the first year students suffer from anxiety and 50% suffer from depression. If half of our campus was already clinically depressed, our institutional retention rates will collapse. Does this data pass the CRAAP test for accuracy?
Yeah, I caught that too, Ilham, basically. If you analyze the study, he's likely referencing those percentages usually represent self-reported temporary stress symptoms during orientation or exam weeks and not verified clinical diagnosis of depression. By presenting these figures as a permanent absolute reflection of the student body, his speech slightly fails to about the accuracy requirement of the CRAAP test due to the data over-dramatization. However, the underlying issue of poor lifestyle choices remains completely valid.
Understood. Now let's evaluate the strong points of his solution. Zare?
So the clear strength is it is a preventative, holistic model. Instead of waiting for students to become clinically ill and flooding the apps counseling button or peer support network, Equal model target the daily behavioral trigger of anxiety. Rebuilding daily routine via walking club or sleeping tracking targets the root physical cause of stress.
But let's look at the immense weaknesses here. A lifestyle program is only effective if students actually participate. The students who are experiencing the highest level of burnout and depression are the ones least likely to voluntarily sign up for a walking club or attend a sleep hygiene workshop due to chronic lack of energy and time. Therefore, the adherence rate among the high risk target group will be dangerously low. Furthermore, providing free mindfulness app subscription and funding wellness ambassadors require a heavy and continuous financial budget from the university administration.
So, is it actually realistically implementable at UKM? Diana, how about you give us your professional summary?
So basically, it is highly realistic for a physical activity and mindfulness peers, as those can be driven at zero cost by existing student bodies like a sports center or student clubs. However, the nutritional pillar offering affordable healthy meal plans, which highly unrealistic for a public campus where cafeteria vendors operate as an independent business and cannot be forced to lower price on premium healthy ingredients without heavy university subsidies.
Very well said, Diana. Now let's combine our evaluation for the Stephanie and Divya, as their pitches focus on structural institutional problem. Zare, guide us through Stephanie financial perspective first.
Okay, Ilham. So actually, the problem Stephanie addressed is the highly overlooked factor of financial stress. She stated that students from low and middle income families face intense anxiety because they are constantly worrying about daily expenses, tuition fee, and lack of financial aid, which directly trigger academic decline and dropout rate. The solution she gave is a two-pronged financial stress support program which organizing financial literacy workshop, increasing targeted awareness of existing aid like scholarship or zakat, and actively creating more on-campus part-time job opportunity for students.
And how does Divya pitch connect to this structurally?
For me, the problem Tivia address is the everyday reality of unmanageable academic workload, where overlapping assignment, deadline, exam, and group work cause massive exhaustion and academic withdrawal. Her solution actually is introducing flexible academic policy, improve deadline coordination between different lecturers to avoid deadline crash, and early warning system via academic advising.
I see. Well, let's open the floor to debate the strong points and the weakness of these two proposals. Koyum, for you, what do you think stands out?
Okay, the strong point of Stephanie's idea is that it directly addresses a structural root cause of mental illness instead of just treating emotional symptom. And increasing awareness of zakat and emergency funds is a highly practical, zero-cost information campaign that can be executed immediately via student affairs. However, Her proposal to create more part-time campus job opportunities is a major weakness in terms of scalability because the university has a fixed operational budget and a limited number of administrative or library desks, and we cannot realistically scale job creation to meet the demands of thousands of low-income students. Furthermore, adding a part-time job to a student who is already struggling with time management might actively worsen their mental health and academic performance.
Okay, let's look at TVS proposal for flexible academic policies. The strong point is that coordinating deadlines between lecturers will instantly flatten the stress spike that occurs during mid-semester evaluation weeks. It creates a highly sustainable learning environment without lowering academic standards. But the massive weakness is institutional compliance. In a massive university system with autonomous faculties, forcing different professors and external lecturers to constantly coordinate their syllabus and assignment drop dates is an administrative nightmare. Furthermore, adaptable deadline risks being heavily exploited by students procrastinate, which disrupts the faculty grading timelines and delay final exam processing.
Very well said, Khadija. Now let's finalize the implementation verdict for both Stephanie and Tivia on our worksheet. Are these ideas realistically implementable?
For me, Stephanie Financial Literacy and Aid Awareness Program is 100% realistic and should be adopted immediately as it only requires better communication infrastructure, which, however, TVR deadline coordination is reality if handled at a department level rather than a university-wide level. If the head of department ensure that core course lecturer review a shared deadline calendar before publishing their course outline, it can be executed seamlessly without changing official university policies.
Outstanding analysis, everyone. Now we have thoroughly evaluated all 5 components of Group 4 pitch video using our worksheet criteria. To conclude our professional meeting, we need to reach a group consensus on our final recommendation. If we look at Group 4's entire presentation as a single, multi-dimensional framework, how do we evaluate their collective performance?
Well, to wrap up from my side, I believe Group 4 did an excellent job of breaking down the theme of health and well-being into 5 distinct, interlocking perspectives. They successfully traced the problem from peer isolation to app infrastructure, lifestyle behaviors, financial stress, and finally, academic policy, which it was highly cohesive.
Agreed. Their strongest, most immediate recommendation that we should highlight in our worksheet response is Aisha's app-based counseling integration, paired with Daryl's peer filtering system. It bridged the gap between technology and human relatability perfectly, provided they incorporate the clinical boundaries we discussed today.
Well, last but not least, Koyum. As our lead presenter, would you summarize our final panel evaluation statement for our worksheet submission?
Absolutely, Ilham. So, our group's final assessment is that Group 4 has delivered a highly structured, data driven, and emotionally resonant pitch that addresses a clear campus public health concern. While certain elements, such as 24-hour counselors rotations or campus job creation, face serious human resource and financial scalability limitations, their core ideas are highly commendable. By refining their proposal to include strict clinical gating for peer volunteers, setting specific peak hours for app text counseling, and utilizing departmental calendars to prevent deadline crashes, the university can realistically build a highly approachable and sustainable mental health framework. And we have fully documented these insights across all criteria on our group cross evaluation worksheet. And we are ready to submit our professional review. And thank you, everyone, for an incredibly rigorous and collaborative session.
Fantastic work, team. The evaluation metric is officially finalized and our consensus is logged in. I will complete our notes into the master document. This professional cross evaluation meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.